two great young men, and to have them get up here and talk a little bit. I know a lot's been talked about with, when you look at Kenneth and the record and everything else, but I tell that unselfish story from a week ago when we were out on the field and Boston Scott returns a kick to the 4-yard line and he has a chance to go in and get a touchdown, and he says, "You know what, Coach, let Blake Martin have it. I mean, he's a senior too." And for as unselfish as the guy is, I would love to see him have the opportunity to reach that mark. If it happens, that would be great. But at the same point in time, I think the goal of this team and what we're trying to do is the ultimate goal. And we always talk about these players giving up their own individuality for the good of this team. And right now, I couldn't ask more from these upperclassmen and the leadership of this team for the way that they have handled that. It was a needed open date, very much so, getting into this week. We needed this open date for a number of reasons. It was an opportunity for us to self-scout, really to sit down and look at us, where we are statistically, where we are. The question was about pass defense earlier, where we are in offense, red zone offense, third down, kicking game, et cetera, all those things, to really have an opportunity to self-scout ourselves and spend a lot of time really looking internally at what we need to do better. Because potentially we could have 4 games remaining. We know we have 3 right now with 7 wins, 2 on the schedule and a bowl game. But potentially with 4 games remaining, felt like it was a great opportunity to self-scout and kind of look inside at ourselves. We had an opportunity to look at a couple of our future opponents and to put kind of mock game plans together for those. We had an opportunity to get on top of recruiting. We had an opportunity to develop some depth. We went pretty hard at it on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we were in full pads. We scrimmaged quite a bit and really gave a lot of those young guys an opportunity to come along. When you talk about guys like Russell Ferris and Brandon Derman and Theron Williams and Trey Spencer and a lot of these young guys, it really gave us an opportunity to get a really good look at them. And so I thought it was really productive. And then with the quarter ending this week on Thursday, it was a great opportunity for us to give them some free time and get a jump academically. Just so we can finish this quarter up strong, I think was really important. So I felt like it was a really productive week. I feel like we got better last week. We had an opportunity to really look at ourselves and maybe add some wrinkles and doing some things a little bit different to help ourselves in some of the problem areas that we have. But I thought it was really a productive week as a staff and as a team. And then we got an opportunity to get away for a couple days, to give the players off Friday, Saturday, to get them out of here, to give them a mental break, a physical break, I think was really important for them as we get into these final games of the year. Getting into UTEP this week, I think UTEP is a very dangerous opponent. I say that because they need this game for bowl eligibility. And so with 2 games remaining, they're kind of in a win or else. And so I know right now that we will get, not only do they play hard every game when you watch them, but I know we will get everything that we can get because they will throw the sink at us. They're in a more or less a 1-game season, and so it's a very dangerous game. And I think the most important thing is that we understand what we're walking into. They are 8-2 at home over the last 2 years. They're very difficult to beat at home, but being 8-2 at home, we know this is going to be a heck of a challenge for us in going on the road. I think Sean Kugler does a great job with that program. They are hard-nosed, they are physical, they are tough, and they control the line of scrimmage. That is one thing you know for sure. When you look at them, break them down as an offense and defense, their offense, they have their offensive coach, their offensive line coach is his son is the quarterback. So last time a quarterback's son came in here, he threw for about 400 yards on us from Middle Tennessee. But we've got coach's son who's playing quarterback, offensive line. They have 4 or 5 returning starters. Sean Kugler prides himself as an offensive line coach, as an offensive lineman, what he does running the ball and controlling the clock and cutting off your possessions and managing the game. He does a really good job with that. They have a tight end that leads them in leads them in catches, and they have 2 wide receivers that I think are very explosive in golden and white. Number 8 and number 9 are very explosive big play players. Their running backs, they've had some injuries. They're doing it by committee right now. But I'll be honest, I think when you look at this football team, it's about their offensive line, how they come off the ball and how they control the line of scrimmage and what they're able to do up front, and they really do a good job with it. Their defense ties into what they do as an offense. They are 4-2-5 defense. They play with 5 defensive backs, but they are very active, very pressure-oriented with what they do. Most people that are 4-2-5, their safeties are the leading tacklers. With this defense, it's their 2 defensive ends and their 2 linebackers. Their front 6 are very active with what they do. They're physical, they're hard-nosed, they go against that offensive line every day, and they play very physical up front on their front. And it's one of those things when you look at them statistically, they may give up some yards, but they lead the league in 3 and outs as well, because they're going to put a lot of pressure on the line of scrimmage, and they are going to force your hand, and that you are going to have to operate under pressure, and they do a really good job. The special teams, I think, is probably one of their strong suits. They have a kick returner that is the active leader in FBS football right now. Excuse me, in kickoff returns. I believe he's 3rd all-time in touchdowns on kickoff returns. They have a punt returner averaging 15.5 yards per return. They've got a punter who's 2nd in the league, averaging 45.8, and their kicker is 3rd in the league with 62% touchbacks. So when you look at them on their special teams, they're really salty on their special teams, and it'll be a great challenge for us having to go there and play where they have an 80% winning record over the last 2 years. And as a football team, we've just got to make sure that we're focused. We've had our open date. We've had our time away. And now it's time to get back into the routine, the day-to-day routine of getting back into game week. And so Sunday was a step in the right direction with what we were able to do on Sunday, and really get a head start with a good practice Sunday night. And then players are off today academically, and then we'll be back over here tomorrow to really start getting into the full game plan of everything.
Before we get into game day questions, last year, right at the end of the year, you had some academic issues. You've changed your academic guy this year in Thomas Graham, former Bulldog. How are things shaping up academically?
You know, we have spent a lot of time on it, and with the quarter ending on Thursday, that's definitely something that we have kind of, with the open date last week, been kind of an all hands on deck. I think Thomas Graham has been a phenomenal addition to our academic office. I think he played here. He understands it from both the student side, but also the athlete side. He understands the faculty, the workload, you know what I mean, the relationships, the workload that the student athletes have to go through, the proper channels. I think there's been a huge attempt to bolster the academic center over there, to increase that, to enlarge that, to make that a better situation for our student athletes, and I think it's showing. We have taken players that have been dismissed in the last 2 weeks for study sessions, tutoring, things along those lines. We're trying to do whatever we can, but when you talk about it says student athlete, that's how it starts, student first, and we're making sure that those young men are doing that. We have a handful of young men that are maybe in danger of that have been taken out of football, that have been doing nothing but working on their academics right now, and I think it's that important for us to make that stand and say that if you don't make your grades, you're not going to have the opportunity to play the game, because I don't want to go through what we went through last year. But I think there's been a really concentrated effort from the administration, from the job that Thomas Graham is doing, and from the involvement of the staff that I think is making a difference right now. But we'll find out on Thursday at the end of the quarter.
You mentioned the unselfishness of this team. There seems to be a relaxed atmosphere around here, and I guess kind of a confidence in a tight-knit group. How important is that to your success?
I think it's huge, and I would say it's probably more of a I don't know that it's relaxed as much as it's a very confident, comfortable group. I mean, they're very comfortable together. They're very confident together. The way they work right now, you hear Kentrell Bryce get up here and talk about blue collar. We come back, we go to work. Some of the things that we really have looked at hard in the off season, our secondary was promoted very highly. But then you've got 3 new linebackers that are walking into the mix from a pass coverage standpoint. I'm certainly not trying to blame anybody, but pass defense is about your 4 pass rushers and your 7 guys that are dropping in protection. And sometimes it's the secondary takes a lot of the brunt, but it's really where all 7 of them fit. And I think those guys have had a blue-collar, hard work approach every single day, and I think they're getting better and better. And I thought this week we made some strides in that as well. And I think that's it's not about finger pointing. It's they're very comfortable with who they are. They know they're all going to work. They trust each other. There's a commitment to saying, what do we have to do to get better? And our whole mantra the whole year has been, we just have to keep getting better. You know what I mean? We're not there yet. I said it after, I don't remember one of the games earlier, we're a work in progress. I mean, we're still a work in progress, and we're 10 games in because you have some injuries and you change some leadership, and Nick Thomason's gone. Well, all of a sudden, Russell Ferris comes in, and he's got to fit on the string with everybody else to make pass defense work. And just the attitude and the comfort with all of them, and I think that's where their confidence comes from, is the trust factor in each other. Offense, defense, special teams, and the hard work that everybody's put in and the commitment that everybody has.
Clarification, you said some guys haven't been playing to get their academics already. You mean practicing, or like they haven't played last couple of games because of academics?
They have not practiced.
Just it could be some starters.
No.
Okay.
You use the word dangerous with UTEP, and
Yes.
I know that you've kind of called, like, you've referred to some of these games where you're favored as like maybe trap games, and you've won those games handedly. Is it maybe time to kind of like graduate from the whole trap game narrative, or you think that might be still in play this weekend?
No, I don't recall saying trap game. It's a dangerous game because of who we're playing and the situation and where they are. With us having final exams this week, there's a big load academically right now on this football team coming off of an open date. How are you going to gel? Are you going to come back and, stay in the same routine you were in? And dangerous from a standpoint, the team you play is 8-2 on the road, or they're 8-2 at home. And if they don't win this game, it would knock them and eliminate them from bowl eligibility. That's what makes this a dangerous game. So I'm not in a trap game. I'm not in a poor, pitiful me. I'm in, this is reality. This is what we're facing. These are the facts. And I'm very honest with our football team and what we're going to walk into and the amount of focus that it's going to take to go win this game. But I think it would be a mistake to think, oh, yeah, well, look at the records and we're better than them. I think that's a loser's mentality. I think right now we've got to take the mindset that we're walking into a very dangerous game with a team that's 8-2 at home in the last 2 years who is facing bowl elimination. So we will get their best shot of the year.
I'm guessing nothing will change in terms of preparation or maybe managing of snaps or anything, considering this game, I guess technically in the standings, it may not matter looking ahead to the Southern Miss with the magnitude of that game next weekend.
No.
When you look at them defensively, you said they like to crowd the line of scrimmage and that kind of thing. What's going to be the key offensively for you guys this week then?
Well, when you look at it, it's nobody's been able to control the ball on them. You know, when you talk about winning the time management part of it, the time of possession, nobody's been able to control the ball, and very few people have been able to take the ball and have 12, 13 play drives and methodically drive the field. They are kind of a feast or famine type defense. They're going to put everybody up there, and they're either going to give up a big play or they're going to get off the field. But either way, the mindset is like, get the ball back to the offense. And the offense controls the game. They cut your possessions down because they control the ball so much on offense with their running game, where typically you'll get into a game and you'll have 14 to 15 possessions. You may get 8 in this game. And so if you have 5 3-and-outs, it only means you can score 21 points with your offense on the field. Everything goes well. So I think that's kind of what they do, their mindset and how they're trying to manage and control the game. And that's the challenge that we have. We got to be on point. We got to be able to throw and catch and do what we're doing. And we got to be able to try and break some tackles and make some big plays.
So that being said, how paramount is it to get off to a fast start Saturday?
Yeah, I think, I look at, a game like just a week or two ago, it was 7-3 right before the half with Southern Miss. So I don't think we got to be up 21-0. We got to jump on an early lead and let's go out there and throw the ball 3 times deep and try and put points on the board early. Because if you get into that mindset, I mean, if they start with the ball and can control it and move it down the field and score, I mean, they went down the field and put up points on ODU last week in a hurry. I mean, they had the ball and they had it about 8 minutes and they drove the length of the field and they scored, and ODU gets it. And if you throw 3 deep balls, you're putting it back to them down 7-0, and you may only run 3 plays in the first quarter. So you got to be careful with what you're trying to do, and you got to be able to manage the game and kind of go with the flow of it and be able to attack what they're doing. And I don't know what their mindset will be against us. I'm sure with last year's film and having the same coordinators in place and everything else, they're looking at it, and they'll have a game plan coming into this game that they feel will give them a chance to win, and we're just going to have to adjust to it.
How's Dixon? You comment on any of the guys? You have a lot of guys banged up North Texas. Any of those guys you think will miss or not be available for UTEP?
I have to go through. There's a lot of guys on that injury report right now, but names.
Cooper.
Cedric Cooper should be fine. He should be fine. I don't see any problem with him. I mean, Kenneth's running well, doing that. We've got a lot of guys that are right on that bubble right now. Guys that maybe have been out for a little bit. Nick Thomason, we're going to have to learn a little bit about him. We may have him back this week. He's really been progressing well and really responding to treatment. Connor Smith may be back, this week. We could get him back this week. We'll find out. Last week in the open date, he was running around a little bit more.
Paul's been a lot of time on the bike. He played, but he was on the bike.
Yeah, he's had that nagging hamstring injury, and I think last week was good for him, having a little bit of time away to give it really a chance to recover, because the problem with the hamstring is if you never let it recover, it'll never heal. It just needs time, and unfortunately that's not something we have in the middle of the season as a senior. And so he's just been pushing through it each and every week, and he's been getting all the treatment and doing everything we can to try and get him onto the field. But I think last week was good for him, and he ran around really well last night. He looked good.
You mentioned a couple of weeks ago that it's been pretty uncanny that every win it seems like y'all have had over the last couple of years has been a blowout victory in your wins. And outside of the Texas-San Antonio game, it's been the same case again this year. Talk about how out of the ordinary that is.
I think it's really a tribute to these players. I think it's a real tribute to these players and the way they prepare. And as Kentrell said, it's their blue-collar mindset and approach. They show up each and every week. It's not about, we say every week we got a faceless opponent. It's about what we do. It's about our focus. It's about our preparation. It's about how we prepare for the game mentally, physically, how we get ready. And these guys they've really bought into that, and that's part of that comfort and that confidence and where that comes from. But I think the result on the field is because of these players and their mindset, their unselfish attitude and their mindset and the way they show up each and every week to play the game. I think it's a tribute to them and what they're doing, but it takes a team effort. It takes a team effort offensively, defensively, and from a special team standpoint to be able to do what we've done and be able to put up some points. And we want to have the ability to run the ball and throw it as an offense, and we want to have the ability to stop the run and stop the big play as a defense. And I think those guys have really bought into that, and they're doing a nice job with it. It's a fun team to coach.
Looking at some of the quarterback stats in the conference, you got 4 guys that are in the top 15 nationally passing yards. 3 of them, actually almost 4 of the top, 3 of the quarterbacks are make up some of the top teams in the league with Nick Mullen, Southern Miss, Driscoll here at Louisiana Tech, and Dowdy at Western Kentucky. Why do you think, Conference USA has all these good quarterbacks? What do you make of just some of the numbers that putting up? And then, of course, you got Brett Stockstill.
Yep.
Tennessee's probably the 5th best team in the league.
And has an opportunity to be bowl eligible. And I think it goes to show, it goes to show how important a quarterback is in success. When you talk about what people are doing. And in today's day and game, and having a quarterback and somebody that can pull that trigger is an important part of it today. I think it's a tribute to the coaches. I think it's a tribute to the coaches that are in the league. And I think it's a tribute to their ability to recruit. When you start to look at some of the quarterbacks that are in this league and their development and what they've done, there's some really good coaches in this league and some coaches that understand the passing game and are really complex with it and have really done a nice job. And I think if you talk about all 4 of those, I think probably all 4 of those quarterbacks are probably ranked somewhere in the top 20 or top 25 in the country. at a Conference USA, which I think is a real testament to the players and to the coaches and the programs that they've built. I have said this time and time again, the job that Tony Peterson has done the last 2 years with one-year quarterbacks and Cody Sokol and Jeff Driscoll has been incredible. I mean, I think we call him the guru. I mean, with what he's done right now, I think it's a real testament to all of those guys, those position coaches and those players.
You talk about
When Kenneth Dixon does break this record, what could it mean for the program in terms of national exposure?
You know, I think it would be great, but I think if you ask Kenneth, you could win this weekend or break the record, he'd say, I want to win. I mean, I don't, like I said, if that record was important to him, I think he would have went back out there on the field and taken that touchdown the other night, which would have given him one more or one step closer. I think that record is great for Kenneth. I think he's definitely deserving. We are not, just changing our game plan and say we're going to run it every down when we get down there. We're going to try and put the ball in the end zone. And, with Kenneth, I even ran one play. I ran one play to the left when we were on the headsets. I ran it to the left, and we were on about the 30-yard line. I ran it to the left to set a play up that I wanted to run from the left hash. And Tony Peterson on the headset, he broke through the line and he goes, Coach, I don't think you're going to need it. And Kenneth goes through and scores. And it was like, well, okay, good. Good. I don't have a problem with that. I think it has the opportunity to happen. And I think Kenneth is so unselfish. That's the reason why we would all like to see him get it. It would be great to see the logo and the brand all over talk shows and television shows and college football shows, because I do think it's a huge thing. But at the same point in time, we're not going to get caught up in the race with him and the young man from Navy and what we got to do, and we got to make sure he get 2, so we got to get 4. You know what, if it happens, that would be great. And that would be great for the offensive line and the guys on offense and what it's meant to all of them. But the ultimate goal is what we're trying to chase, and that's what we're trying to do as a team.
You talk about the blue-collar attitude of the defense and taking some ownership and improving the pass defense. What have you seen behind the scenes of those guys taking that ownership, and what have they done?
Well, I think this week for self-scout was good for us. I mean, to really sit down and say, okay, where's the breakdown? And you know what? God, we got in this coverage, and we had somebody get off the hash in the coverage. We had, maybe a couple, I'm not going to call them missed assignments, but technique errors, where they weren't playing the coverage the way it was supposed to be played. And then a lot of it is just having the linebackers fit underneath. You've got 3 new linebackers that have never started before. And Bo Feet and Nick Thomason and C.J. Cleveland, Lloyd Grogan even with his move down to linebacker, playing a new position. I think they've done a great job, but they've still been there for a year, and when you're talking about having the type of defense you want to have, you got guys like Kentrell Bryson and Darius Barnes and Bryson Abraham and Xavier Woods that have all been at their position 3 and 4 years. And so I think that has been a big part of it, and I think it was a good opportunity for us to get better and look at some of the mistakes that we needed to do. But these guys, the way they've came out and worked, it wasn't open date like, oh, well, why are we doing this? There's no opponent. There's no, these upperclassmen, it was like, hey, let's go to work. What do we got to get? What do we got to get done this week? What do we got to do? Because the whole mindset has been we got to keep getting better. The teams that win are the teams that get better throughout the course of the year, not the teams that sit back and rest on what they've accomplished to that point. And that's what makes me enjoy this team so much, is their blue-collar, hard-working approach.
You talk about the self-scout. What was the biggest positive you gleaned from it? Maybe the negative? And probably maybe the most concerning.
Well, probably I don't know that there was anything concerning, because I didn't see anything that can't be fixed. If we could develop a maturity pill, I think that would help us, really quicker. The quickest way to get better. When you start looking at guys like Trey Spencer and guys like Aaron Robertson and guys like Cedric Cooper and guys like Theron Williams, they're all younger guys that are having to step in and play. And when we start getting into nickel situations, you're playing 5 defensive backs, and one of those guys have to go in. And some of them are growing mistakes. You wish that you didn't have those, but you wish you could make those growing mistakes on the field, and that's why the mindset of why practice is so important is where we can make some of those mistakes and clean it up and get ready for a game. That was some of it, youth, which is why last week was so important to us to get some things better. There were some some things that we've got to do a better job coaching. Where obviously there's some confusion because it showed up time and time again from that standpoint that we had to get cleaned up. But I feel like the run defense, and talking strictly on the defensive side of the ball, when you said what was I excited about, I'm excited about the way we're playing run defense, the physical nature that our defense is playing, and the way those guys are flying around up front. The negative is when you look at our pass defense, it's not what it needs to be. And trying to find that solution and meeting that we've got some very knowledgeable, educated coaches that are in there and talking about what we need to do. And I feel like we got better. I feel like some of the changes that we made are definitely going to help us as a football team as we go down the stretch here.
How important is that, the focus on the pass defense, considering, your possible next two opponents in the future could be Southern Miss, Southern Miss,
right,
and potentially Western Kentucky, two teams who have really good quarterbacks.
Well, and you look at, that's going to be a big part of it, especially when you look at the first matchup. If we are fortunate enough to get to that game, you look at our first matchup with Western Kentucky, and that was concerning. We gave up a lot of yards, we gave up a lot of points. We're trying to make some adjustments with the offensive line that we have to play two new guys in positions, and we're down 21-3 like that. So I think it's going to be huge. And when you look at Southern Miss and the way that they throw the ball, I think pass defense is going to be good, and that's why I think this open date came at a great time for us. I hated it being 10 weeks into the season, but once we got to it, it was nice to be able to take a deep breath and really take a look at some things and help give yourself an opportunity going down the stretch to be a better football team.
Last week you and I talked about on the radio the offensive line and how they've come along, and what did you see during the open week of the guys that are be your starters for years to come?
Well, to have the opportunity to see guys like Ethan Reed and some of those guys that are redshirting right now, and to see Shane Carpenter get the amount of work that he got, to see Deontay McCready at the guard position get what he got. I think that it was great development stuff for those guys right now, and I think something we need. I'm excited about the future. I think Jens Danielson and Josh Robinson have played really well for us as two seniors up front on the offensive line, but I'm really excited to see these young guys start to put it together, because I think we have some talent on the offensive line right now. The biggest issue is just we're young. We're young, and we're going to have to develop those guys, and I think Robert McFarland's done a really nice job of putting together an offensive line with, especially by week 2, with some of the injuries that we had with the center position and the way we had to move a lot of the pawns around up front to be able to make it work. But those guys have kept getting better, and they're working hard at it, and they're doing some good things up front.
And when was the decision made for Kirby to be 2-year redshirt? At what point in the season was it made?
Really, to be honest with you, we hadn't made it, because I can't see him playing at this point, but it was once he goes through the surgery and then gets in the rehab and his strength is back where he can go out on the field and protect himself and play without it being an injury risk. I don't think we're there yet. I think if we played tomorrow, even if he didn't have a redshirt year, I don't know that he'd play tomorrow. He's not there yet, but obviously this late in the season it would not be something that we're entertaining right now.
But last North Texas game, after the game, you said Jeff, trying to think of the word, but they basically said that enough wasn't being written about him in some of the accolades and news stories and whatnot. Do you feel the same way about KD, especially now that he's closing in on that record? Because I feel like maybe it's just me that not a lot of attention is being given toward him.
I believe after the game I was asked if I thought he was being written, if he was getting enough coverage, and no, I don't. With what Jeff's doing, I think he is a phenomenal story of everything that's good in college football. A young man that graduates, who's does everything he's supposed to do, an excellent young man on and off the field, and for him to get on the field, to find a new home, to get a fresh start, to really enjoy the game of football again, and to see the success he's having, I think those are feel-good stories. And I think Kenneth is the same thing, to see his unselfish attitude. It's not about give me the ball. It's not about how many carries I get. It's all about, coach, whatever we got to do to win. Deep down inside, do I think he'd love to have the record? I do, but I do believe it's from his heart when he says, Coach, if I give that touchdown to the other senior, he's been hurt all year, let him have that one. It wasn't, record, let me go, I want to be in. Those are things that don't happen everywhere. That type of unselfishness. And in fast-paced world that we're in that's all about me, I think it's refreshing to deal with people like Kenneth Dixon on a daily basis. And so I think a story should be told.
All right, thank you.
Thank y'all.